Hey, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. It's Council of Future Conflict, episode 512. We're talking the Chutney Chowdown and the Babushka Beatdown today. Oh, well, I mean, I guess there is a little alliteration going on there. I'm a sucker for alliteration, but hey, we're literally talking about the hope, maybe an ending to the Russia-Ukraine war, but also the beginning of this. Well, I don't know if it's a war between Pakistan. It seems kind of tepid to me, guys. It doesn't seem like a war. I mean, anybody who had a bomb land on their head would probably disagree with us. But it's definitely a fight. It's a I don't know. Anyway, I have a hard time taking India and Pakistan serious. I know they both are nuclear armed, but ultimately they seem like two countries that are really worried about actually having to fight. So I don't know. I'll throw it to you guys. Joe, how you doing today, brother?
I am doing well and good. We're getting ready for the big spring training week, so I made some improvements in classroom layout and on the property in general to get folks excited about coming out. So we're gonna have a good time. By the way, in the interim, over the last few days, I have learned how to use a sawmill and go from absolute raw lumber to building a stage. We're making a stage for a couple of our events. So cool stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. We that truck actually worked as a pretty good little stage when we did it last
No,
summer? Or
it was last
was it?
summer. Yeah,
Yeah.
the truck was is fine as that, but we decided that because of the number of events we're going to be doing this year and next, that having our own modular stage, two separate 8x10 units we can configure however we want, was probably not a bad idea. So me and our handyman here are building one. So pretty neat.
I think that's a really good idea. I mean, I assume you guys have like a chapel. Like it seems like having a good like little small outdoor amphitheater might be absolutely in order. So it sounds like that's where you're leaning.
What's kind of neat is that as we're building the chapel, we just got some funding for that, and so thank you for you know who you are. Thank you for that. We staked it out the other day. We moved a bunch of the materials closer so we can get it up and running. But this modular stage can attach right to it to expand it while we're still building it, right? And going from there, it's gonna be kind of cool.
Yeah, I tell you, man, there's a lot of really awesome stuff that you guys are doing. So I know that I'm not there. I'm not doing it, but I've been there. And I'm connected, and I hope and I like to spread the word about what you guys are doing. So I feel like I'm part of it, despite the fact that I'm on the other side of the world. So
I did spend some time out in the woods yesterday and got some serious elevation changes in a short period of time. So it's a great time out here. Fun stuff to do.
Moving to Watcher House. How are the chicks doing?
Oh, it's funny you should mention. I've been spending most of my free time with this one. It was born without eyeballs and with cross beak. So we're hand feeding it for a few days to hopefully give it a chance. But this is my new best friend.
Well, fatten it up. It won't be able to see the hatchet coming.
Yeah, well, yeah. Our hatch rates were terrible. Our hatch rates were unfortunately abysmal on these quail, and after talking with Don, it seems that it's more than likely that these incubators in this cheap price range don't do well, and so Don and I have already been talking about doing this for months, but now I'm kind of fully committed. I am going to apply the knowledge that I have to a fairly simple project. We're going to make an open source incubator that actually goddamn works. Applying things that Don knows and I know about hatching eggs. So
there you go. That's awesome. Well, I tell you, Joe, I thought before we jump into the odds and ends, we could talk a little bit about what you mentioned there in the chat. I was just reading the tweet because the Future Conflict channel was tagged on that tweet. You're kind of about talking about the Catholic Church. Now, I just want to put this out there. I got no issue with Catholics. I mean, I got some issue with some things than people of the church, but ultimately, I think that's kind of what you were making the point about, Joe.
No, I wasn't making a point about anything other than the fact that your relationship with God is the most important piece. And when people start saying that the church is, or some man in a building in Rome is, that's not really biblically accurate, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, because a relationship with Christ and God is very personable. If you need that all that stuff, then that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it as long as you get what you need from it, and you. But the problem, Joe, is that so many people can't see past the dogma and past the rules and the walls of a church. It's like they're only a Christian if they have that around them, which is kind of defeats the purpose. So that's kind of what I took away from that back and forth. And so it's just sad that people out there are I don't know. I mean, I'm happy they've got a new pope. It's nice that he's from America, all that kind of stuff. The Pope, he's from Chicago. But he spent more time in Peru, I think, than
he spent 40 years in Peru. So
yeah, in America. So I don't know how Chicagoan he really is. And since then he's been in the Vatican for like the last 7 years or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say before we move on that Mrs. Watcher and I were thinking last night about who would make a good pope. Since this one seems to be displeasing everybody, we decided that even though it's too late because he's already passed, that it's a shame we never got Pope Bob Hope.
Pope Bob, yeah, Pope Bob, yeah. All right, gentlemen. Let's jump into the program, if you will. It's Friday, and Fridays always tend to go a little long, so I don't want to waste people's time. First up. So, one of the areas we've really kind of talked about is this kind of ongoing kind of conflict with Iran. I mean, Joe, this thing goes back to, before the Iran, essentially the fall of the Shah of Iran was the beginning of ongoing back and forth intermittent conflict between Iran and the U.S. for reasons, right? Hell, most of what we did to prop up Saddam Hussein was all about balancing against Iran. So, I mean, this is something that the one thing that I am not against U.S. talking with Iran, but you just can't make a bad deal, right? That was the JCPOA was a fucking terrible deal. It was great for Iran. It was terrible for us. So I'm hoping that the Trump administration is talking to these guys from the standpoint of like, listen, we just want to be done with this bullshit. We don't, we want to. I don't know if you could squash it, but some kind of a détente that we can live with would be good. What's your kind of take on the ongoing talks with them?
Meanwhile, last night we discover an entire secret Iranian facility that was not divulged during the JCPOA or the current talks. So
yeah,
I'll maintain my position that Iran has never been a rational or honest actor, and that you cannot make deals with people like them because they always violate them.
Yeah, they're always looking for a way around whatever they do, because I don't know if they're not rational, but I mean, from my point of view, to me it's more like they're just not honest. I mean, they've kept Israel from dropping a nuke on them all these years, so I don't know, maybe they are a little rational. Let me go into this. This is talking about Vance and his comments on this. So J.D. Vance said on Wednesday that negotiations between the U.S. and Iran are on the right pathway, although he repeated a false claim that no other country in the world besides Iran has a nuclear enrichment program. without a nuclear weapons program. This is, I heard this. I think he just probably got like something mixed up when he said this, because it's obviously not true. A talking point. So like South Korea, for instance, has a nuclear enrichment capability. They don't have a nuclear weapons program. Several non-nuclear armed states are signatories of the NPT. They enrich uranium at low levels, including Japan, Germany, Brazil. Let me ask this basic question: which regime in the world has civil nuclear power and enrichment without having a nuclear weapon? The answer is no one. So so he messed that up. But he said that Iran could maintain a civil nuclear program, but his comments about enrichment suggest he's saying all uranium enrichments must be eliminated. Now, this is actually a good position, I think, especially if we were to start pushing thorium reactors, because you can't use a thorium reactor Joe, we talked about this the other day. Watcher, I think you were the ones that actually kind of brought it to our attention that, like they can't use that to make a bomb. It's almost like that would be the perfect nuke for us, a nuclear reactor for us to spread nuclear technology to countries. Though I don't understand why a country with all their oil wants to have nuclear power generation. Why not just have a bunch of natural gas and oil fire?
I'll tell you a secret. It's because they don't really care about nuclear power.
That's right. They want a nuclear weapon. That's what I was kind of getting to. It's kind of like the point is the nuclear weapon.
Well, I'll tell you the other backdoor there too. Just the funny thing is, like, hey man, if I produce a product, I'd prefer to use as little of it as possible, so I have as much up for sale as I can.
It says let's see. We don't care if people, we believe that there are some elements of their nuclear program that were preserved under JCPOA that, yes, weren't nuclear weapons. Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon, but it allowed Iran to sort of stay on its glide path towards a nuclear weapon if they flip the switch and press go. Yes, I see that's something, Joe, that I think you and I have argued for a long time, because JCPOA never took them off the glide path. They just basically took their foot off the gas. Right? They basically say, yeah, we'll not do this if you give us this money. Oh, by the way, we have secret facilities that we haven't disclosed to you that we may, in fact, be enriching more and more and more uranium at. Let's see. Vance's comments come after President Trump said Iran's nuclear program must be totally dismantled, although he said he was open to hearing about the possibility of a civil program. So far, the U.S. and Iran have 3 rounds of negotiation. Talks that are supposed to be held this past week were postponed, but Iranian media has reported that another round of negotiations will be held this Saturday in Oman. In his comments on Wednesday, Vance also referred to President Trump's threat that if a deal isn't reached, the U.S. Will attack Iran. He said there is a possibility that a deal would reintegrate Iran into the global economy, which he called Option A. He added that Option B would be very bad. Trump had been threatening to bomb Iran if the deal wasn't reached, even though his intelligence agencies recently affirmed that there's no evidence Tehran is building a bomb. So, I mean, I think the point here is that they're talking, but, don't trust it until you've got, like, not only a signed paper, but, 10 years of actually following a deal. And a government that actually doesn't want to kill and destroy Israel. Go ahead, Joe.
So that reminds me, you mentioned the thorium reactor thing. The reason why we hadn't detected this new facility, or not new, it's been there for over 10 years, this facility in northern Iran, is because it's using tritium as the base. Mm-hmm. And we track uranium sales worldwide, but not necessarily tritium. So,
I wonder what kind. Did it say what kind of facility it was?
No.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough.
Almost like the Iranians regarding it as a secret.
Yeah, like I don't know. I'm saying I just don't know enough about nuclear to understand what's the significance of that versus uranium.
Tritium's so radioactive it glows. You know this. You have it on compasses and firearms.
No, that's tritium. Yeah. Okay. Anything else about Iran that you guys want to bring up? The only other thing that I could think of is Houthis basically said that they would, stop shooting at American ships and things, but their ceasefire didn't cover Israel. And then they proceeded to shoot missiles at Ben Gurion Airport and shut it down for a couple of hours.
I think the biggest mystery still remaining about Iran is after 40 years, we don't know how far away he ran.
I run so far away.
I'm glad somebody got the reference. I'm not the only old guy here.
I know. I get it, man. I love that shit. I'm a sucker for it. Watcher, any final smart ass comments before we move on?
Nope.
All right. Well, I just wanted to give you another shot, to
appreciate it.
To top the Iran joke. All right. Moving on. So, if you hadn't figured out, we're talking the domestic portion of today's Domestic Friday show is in the odds and ends. The next one is Trump hails U.S. U.K. trade deal as breakthrough, says lower barriers will unlock transatlantic growth. The funny thing is that these anti-Trump politicians from Europe are so fast to basically get on his knees right in front of him, in front of the cameras and polish him up, we saw it the other day with the Canadian Prime Minister. I mean, hell, Donald Trump was literally talking about Canada as the 51st state right in front of him. And he says, "Oh, some things aren't for sale. From a property developer, some things aren't for sale." Yeah, right. I mean, just give it time, buddy. Give it time. So I think this whole thing is kind of funny. On the heels of Carney coming in and basically, kissing the ring for Canada. Now you've got this UK U.S. trade framework. Now, I don't know much about this because it kind of popped up during the day while I was at work. So let me read this. President Trump unveiled the U.S. U.K. trade framework he called a breakthrough designed to lower trade barriers and expand market access for American exports, especially in agriculture, energy, and industrial goods. While the full details remain under negotiation, the deal promises expedited customs clearance for U.S. products entering the U.K. and retains the existing 10% universal tariff rates with carve-outs for steel, aluminum, and automobiles reduced to zero. It's pretty conclusive, and we think everyone's going to be happy. Many countries want to make a deal, and many countries are very unhappy that we happen to choose this one. The deal includes billions of dollars of increased market access for American exports, especially in agriculture, demanding increasing access for American beef, ethanol, and virtually all products produced by our great farmers. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer told reporters via phone that the trade deal is a job-protecting and job-creating. UK automakers can export 100,000 vehicles to the U.S. at a 10% tariff, down from the previous 25. Additionally, Rolls-Royce parts will enter tariff-free. I wonder about like Rolls-Royce jet engines and things like that, because those are a huge portion of. I think Boeing is a heavy user of those. Let's see. A news headline is expected later this afternoon from a major British airline that had confirmed that a $10 billion Boeing purchase. So basically he's got this little infographic here that he released through Truth Social. And it basically says $5 billion in exports. These are new market access. Tariff revenue will be $6 billion from external revenue. UK tariffs were 5.1%, now 1.8%. US tariffs were 3.4%, now are 10%. Unprecedented access to the UK market: ethanol, beets, cereals, fruits, vegetables, animal feed, tobacco, soft drinks, shellfish, textiles, chemicals, machinery, and more. Pretty interesting that 100,000 quota auto exports, and those are UK autos coming into the U.S. This is going to boost trade between and across our countries, Starmer said. Both Trump and Starmer pointed out today that the 80th anniversary of the two countries celebrating victory of World War II. After Trump, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick reporters, we've opened up new market access, and so kind of some of the stuff that I just read. Here is UBS's first take on the major trade announcement. President Trump has announced agreement with the U.K. that first struck between the U.S. and a foreign country since tariffs were announced. Trump says the deal with the U.K. includes billions of dollars. Blah, blah, blah. All right. So what are you guys thinking on these trade deals? I mean, I think this is probably really similar to what we're going to see in the future where, certain U.S. type of goods get better access to some of these markets that have been pretty fucking closed to us up until now. And UK, I think, needs a trade deal with the US based on their recent, loss of EU markets.
I don't know that the EV market is going to be much in the future.
Right? No, not EU. The European Union.
Oh, I thought you said EV. I'm sorry. Oh, I don't know why. But here's the thing. What this is revealing in all of this is that all these countries already had tariffs on the U.S., despite everyone screeching about American tariffs. And it's proof that rather than just rolling over, as we have done for the last, 40 years, and accept other people's tariffs on our goods and living with trade deficits all the way around, it's proof that playing their game can work. Right, you'll get better deals in the long run, and us always choosing to be the bigger person and letting every other country in the world walk all over us has come to an end. It's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, if one thing has comes out of this entire Trump thing, if by the end of his 4 years, if we've got literally much more manageable and fair trade relationships with our major trade partners. And those who are hostile trade partners like China have lesser access, and we're able to work around the loss and imports and things like that. I'm going to be very happy. If that's literally all we get out of the Trump years, I'll be very happy about that. That being said, I hope we get a lot more. It's. I think it's a net good. I mean, what's your kind of you've got a little different point of view, I think. What's your kind of take?
Look, man, I agree with you that I think the British need this. I would love for us to be able to have this kind of relationship. But you know what the British public's reaction to this was immediately and overwhelmingly?
What's that?
Yeah, we're not going to eat American agricultural products. That's disgusting. I can't believe you would even suggest such a thing.
Yeah, I'd rather just eat baked beans for breakfast because that's your idea.
I'm not, I wish I were joking here, but, legitimately, the reaction was, I can't believe you would even consider allowing American beef products onto our lovely British market, where we just so happen to be forcing our farmers out of their own homes.
Well, here's the way you get past that is you basically put an American piece of meat that's a good piece of meat that's tastes fine and everything about it is there's no qualitative problems with it, and then it's a third the price of whatever they're locally, Now, some people will always eat the local stuff. Like in Korea, there's a really kind of heavy loyalty towards Korean beef. It's super expensive though compared to American beef. Because I live that there's three kinds of beef you can get in Korea: Australian beef, American beef, and Korean beef. American beef is always the cheapest, but it doesn't have the kind of a high end qualitative, that what you see with the Korean stuff.
What's quite funny about that is that in every other country on earth, the three beefs you would see are pretty much Australian beef, local beef, or Japanese beef, but that certainly would not be the case in Korea. Now that I think about it,
but here's the thing: the Korean beef it's the same high quality beef as you would your what do they call it, Wagyu or Kobe beef, that type of thing. It's the same kind of that high quality. It's just made in Korea.
I think Diatica brings up where I'm coming from here. remember, Britain is literally where Mad Cow came from.
Well, I mean, who among us hasn't popped into their favorite local British cuisine restaurant? Oh, there aren't any.
What's that old saw about? You know why Britain has good sailors, right?
Now, as Hunch points out, I will go to a Brazilian steakhouse in a minute because that is good stuff. But I only know of one.
Yeah, if I could.
No, but look, the point of this, even though it was funny, is to say, look, I agree with everyone here that the Britons aren't European. I agree with the British that the Britons aren't European. But somebody needs to convince the British of that in other contexts, because they seem to have this anti-American attitude when, listen, buckos, if you're not going to trade with the EU, what are your options here?
Yeah. Well, I mean, see, that's just the irony is that the U.S. is not going to be interested in an EU trade deal. They're going to be interested in like a bilateral trade deals, and so I don't even know if the EU allows bilateral trade deals between European.
No, Europeans must surrender their sovereignty.
Right. That's actually going to be very interesting, because I know Trump would love to crack into the EU. And to break their back, but I don't know if he's interested in an EU deal. So it'll be interesting how that works.
This week is probably the best week for us to reflect upon that. You remember that time 80 years ago when the world fought against a large European bloc led by the Germans? Huh.
Yeah. Trying to forge a country called Europa. Like a unified Europe. Wow. It's almost like they got their way.
Almost like they got their way. And who was the other power in that? Oh, it was the Japanese, who are also pretty much running whatever they want because everyone gives them money.
Well, the irony is that Japan kind of did it the right way. They became, I think they realized that we did them a solid ultimately, and now they are pretty loyal allies to us. But Europe is definitely not in that camp.
Hold on, Juan Cholo. I have to slow your roll here. Vindaloo is absolutely delicious, and I will not have you malign it. Vindaloo is the reason why I weigh in on the Indian side of this conflict. Okay, if you've never had Vindaloo, guys, you should try it.
I don't even know what Vindaloo is.
What? It's a spicy sauce in Indian cooking.
We are getting a little ahead of ourselves, but I do have to say I did see a great meme that was a rework of the "No Vietnamese ever called me" sign, but it was no Pakistani ever called my grandmother pretending to be Microsoft.
That's true.
Oh, that's fair. Hunch the Dirty Roofer for $2 over on Rumble says, why is it every time we go from the Germanys to Germany, they start acting up and doing dumb shit?
Yeah, the biggest mistake we've ever made in the post-World War I era, twice now, was allowing Germany to not be occupied by literally everyone else.
Well, after looking at that election map, whoa, hold on a second. Kaiser John drops a 20 bomb. I'm saying, being British, driving a German car to an Irish pub for a Belgian beer, grabbing Indian curry or Turkish kebab on the way home, and then watching American TV shows on a Japanese TV like an American.
True, all true.
I would never eat a Turkish kebab, not even in Turkey, especially not in Turkey.
And deciding that dental visits are a once every 5-year necessity. So.
That's right. God bless you if you're British, Kaiser John. Man, you guys got a tough road to hoe, even with this amazing trade deal. Anyway, what I was going to say is, we were looking at the German election map the other day, Joe. And after looking at that map, I'm all for make East Germany great again. Let's let them break back off into East Germany and turn into basically the MAGA of Europe. Let AfD control East Germany. I think we'd all be the better for it.
Yes.
All right. Hey, watch at the bottom. There's a press conference. It's like a 2-minute clip of Trump being Trump at this press conference about this trade deal. Let's listen to what he has to say.
The video I'm looking at's 2 hours and 55 minutes long.
Nope. That's up in the middle of the story. I'm talking at the bottom of the story. It's a rapid response 47. Yeah, there you go. You got it.
I think that it's a great deal for both parties. It's for us. We're opened up. I didn't know how closed it was. Quite closed, the market, as you know, the UK, and it opens up a tremendous market for us, and it works out very well, and a lot of assets. You see the chart, and those are tremendous assets. But we've been trying, and when you say why us, meaning your country, we've been trying for years, and they've been trying for years to make a deal, including when I was in the, first term. It would always be people talking, but they weren't getting it done. But for 25 years before that, they were trying always to make a deal, a very significant deal. I actually, until I looked at the numbers, I didn't realize this is a very conclusive deal, but we think we can grow it even from that. But this is a maxed out deal, not like you said it. You said it really incorrectly. This is a maxed out deal that we're going to make bigger, and we make it bigger through growth. But we have tremendous assets involved. I was surprised to see how big your country is in trade, actually. One of the biggest in technology and so many other things. It's agriculture. I really didn't know. It's depending on your definition, it's from 4 to 5 to 6. That's pretty big in the world. So I was very impressed by that. But we're going to take it to new levels. It's a very big deal right now, but I think it is going to grow just of its own volition. It's going to grow, and over time there'll be changes made. There'll be adjustments made because we're flexible. We'll see things that we can do even better. But it's very conclusive, and we think everyone's going to be happy, and the people of your country are going to be very impressed with the result, and they'll be able to buy from more people. They'll be able to price things differently. They'll be able to get some products that aren't available to them now that we make better than anybody in the world. And it's just something that it's a great thing that it came together. It's so nice because we have many countries want to make a deal, and many countries are very.
Can I just take a moment and say that this comment? I never knew I would be so grateful for complete sentences.
Right? For a guy who can actually just carry on a conversation.
Yeah.
It's a low bar to set, but it is a good one.
Yeah. And it's important to remember, spend some time, thank the Lord for the blessings that you have. And yeah, I'm putting that on the list.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I forgot about that until I saw these recent interviews with Biden, and I was like, "Oh yeah, man, that guy is fucking gone."
Oh, God. He hasn't gotten any better with age, right?
Oh God, I saw a perfect summation of that the other day. It was, sir, it's been reported that you had severe mental decline over the last several years, which has been covered up. Biden mumbles.
Not once have I heard Donald Trump lean into the microphone and whisper.
That's true.
Here, Joe. What you guys are crazy.
All right. So I thought that was I think that these trade deals are going to be really good for us. I think ultimately, and they're going to bring any kind of problems with the market in the last 100 days. With the tariffs and whatnot, I think ultimately these trade deals will kind of not only equalize any of the problems, but it will also bring the markets back in a much more healthy way. The problem with the markets that they were up in during Biden, but it was all that fake money, right? It was all the the Treasury and the Fed kind of pumping liquidity in it was that dumb money, So all right, let's all right, let's get on to the next one here. So speaking of trade talks, China is not happy, evidently. China panics ahead of trade talks, shuts down its economic data. So, like, ultimately, I see. Are you trying to talk or something?
No,
Archer?
sorry, I didn't realize I was on.
Oh, okay. So I was like, what's going on? So anyway, Joe, we look at China as like a post-economy, communist, totalitarian nation, right? Like all the stuff where they try to interact with the world as a normal nation is all kind of smoke and mirrors, right? We know them to be basically the blood-fueled, human-fed, murder machine that they were back in the 60s. They continue to be that same country at its core. Everything else is just this kind of bolt-on capitalism that attempts to try to make as much money as possible, to get all the advances that they can before the inevitable war comes.
Which brings us to the true classification of where China sits on the political spectrum. If there was one system that espoused all the aspects of socialism, but included state-run capitalism in that model, it's fascism, which is actually
100%. China is the modern day successor to the crown of the National Workers' Party, the Nazi party, right? It is literally the most Nazi. Actually, China is more Nazi than Nazi Germany ever was. They're so controlling. They're actually trying to make lab-grown superhumans. They're doing all the kind of Joseph Mengele
social
stuff.
Credit.
Yeah, social credit.
Was originally a Nazi idea, right? They
Well,
didn't call it social credit, but they had it.
Well, yeah, the whole idea of controlling the behavior of their people through coercive, both carrot and stick methods, right? That's essentially what social credit is. It's gamification of that system.
I noticed your arm wasn't up as high as everyone else's during your Sieg Heil.
Exactly right. Yeah. But anyway, the point is that in the meantime, a lot of Chinese have gotten very kind of attached to the trappings of Western wealth that they bolted onto their blood-fueled murder machine. And so to that end, when it stops working, because the thing is it only works for them when they can take full advantage of basically cheating the West, specifically the United States, at full power, right? So it started to break down, and they're now having to hide that so that let's be honest, Joe, China will always lie to save face, right? And even though this may not be their main thing, it's definitely their main moneymaker. So let's dive into it. There's a social contract of sorts amongst all governments of the world to share economic data on prevailing conditions. Behind the practice was a collegial contest to see which nation has the healthiest system, which in turn serves the capital markets by helping to direct resources where they are needed. Sometimes the data is inaccurate, sometimes there are lies, but in general, there's at least an attempt to play along with the expectation. This allows agencies and investors to make better assessments and prognostications, plus assist policymakers and central bankers in particular to make better judgments. There is a general rule in operation. The more transparent governments are with the data they collect, the more freedom of speech that it's permitted to interpret the data in different ways, the more credible it is. It is also likely that the governments which share and discuss also have numbers for which they can feel pride. I feel like they're kind of poking a finger back at the U.S. on that because of how the fucking numbers were so cooked. The books were so cooked under the Biden administration. The lack of transparency in the last 4 years has been absolutely astounding. And let's be honest, it goes back into the Trump era because they never really cleared out those people in like OMB and all this kind of stuff. And then so it stretches back into the 90s for sure. I think probably the only time we really had decent economic numbers that were kind of clear was during the Cold War, because we needed to know that the economy was working in order to defeat the Russians. But ever since then, it's been a rigged game.
Well, whenever we flipped off, including energy and fuel in our in the consumer price index, is when we started lying about our economic data, right? And until we flip that back on, we're still not giving the truth.
Yeah, I think you've got a great point there. Let's jump back down into this. So rarely do nations go entirely silent on the market as it turned off the switches and making the data rooms go dark. It is an ominous sign. This is precisely what has happened in China. Starting with the last several months, and in some cases dating back several years, China has gone dark in the reporting of the following: land sales, foreign investment, unemployment numbers, business confidence, numbers of investors in financial markets, real estate valuation, retail sales, and even vital data on cremation, so that health authorities have no idea what's going on. The bureaus have simply stopped reporting. With the second largest economy, the widespread doubt about the country's economic health, this is gravely concerning. It's almost like they're reverting back to the mean of socialism and authoritarianism. Like they basically attempted to play the West's game by, showing some cooked books of the last 40 years. But now that they are basically the balancing power against the U.S., they're starting to realize that it doesn't do them any good, especially in this new regime where Trump has basically called their bluff on almost all the trade goods. And, I'm hearing actual stories that China is hurting from this trade war. Full factories are having to basically just completely shut down. They're sending workers home. This is causing like some migration
with dogs. It's just crazy.
Well, the irony is that the only hope for freedom in China is if the people in China get so pissed off that they start forcing the government to start killing them in giant job lots. I just don't see that happening. I think they're so cowed and they're so frightened of the central government. I don't think it'll ever happen. With the second largest economy and widespread doubt about the country's economic health, this is gravely concerning. Close watchers have long raised doubts about China's GDP. We are told that the economy grew 5% last year, which would be extremely impressive, but such huge measures are subject to manipulation in every country, but especially in one that has made the promise of extreme economic growth central to the power and permanent control of the CCP. Experts have suggested that growth rates have been exaggerated by 2 to 3 percentage points. This past December, a highly regarded Chinese economist, Gao Shanwen, was visiting the U.S. And he sat on an expert panel thinking that perhaps he should speak his mind. He said very plainly that no one knows for sure what the growth rates in China are. He speculated they might be about 2%. My own speculation, this is his quote, this is my own speculation, in the past 2 to 3 years, the real GDP numbers on average might be around 2%, even though the official numbers are close to 5%. I mean, the problem is they have to keep growing their economy at 5% minimum in order for them to not start seeing major structural problems and to continue to essentially afford they need that growth to afford like all the make work jobs that the CCP does in order to keep people employed. That's what they've been doing with their excess male population for these last 20 years. Now, if that kind of goes away, then you've got a lot of excess males hanging around, not doing anything useful. It might be time to start that war up, Joe. It's almost like they've got a place where they know they could use the.
And you know what? There was a very, on that note, there was a very, very interesting interaction between the Filipinos and the Chinese yesterday. So,
tell us about
that. So a Philippine patrol boat was attempting to reach Scarborough Shoal yet again, and the Chinese Coast Guard was following it far too close for safety, and then which is normal for the Chinese Coast Guard, but the PLAN has generally remained more professional at sea. In this instance, they boxed the ship in. In other words, while following too closely, they cut across the bow very sharply and almost caused a collision. In that regard, remember back when I said the odds of this whole thing kicking off because of an incident at sea? It goes through the roof when that happens, because when two armed ships ram another armed ship, inevitably they're going to start passing out small arms, and we're going to see some more conflict. This time it might not be with axes and knives like we saw the first time. It could be with AKs and the deck guns. So it's an interesting escalation by the PLAN against the Philippine Coast Guard.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This is something that we've kind of been calling for a while. We've said that, ever since that giant melee where they were stabbing at each other and whatnot with, with gas sticks and knives. Ever since that, I think, something like this has been building. So. Ron is in the chat. Ron, good morning. He says, congratulations, Scott. Just read that Costco is coming to you in the rock. Yes, Costco is already here. I don't go to it, honestly. But it's here. Hopefully it.
We actually just got a Costco membership for the first time, because back where we lived, there was a different warehouse store that we went to, and they don't have those here. So we had to get Costco.
Yeah, like my parents swear by Costco. That makes me initially skeptical, though. I did go in my last visit over Christmas. We went there, and I'll be honest with you. The thing that impressed me the most, Joe, is for $100, I could get like 4 huge fucking USDA prime steaks. I mean, normally at American grocery stores, you could only get choice, right? But USDA prime is legit beef, and they were fucking thick suckers that you could get for, and it was like $105 for a 4-pack. I was just like, man, that's awesome.
That is a good deal. Speaking of your parents, your dad texted me on Derby Day, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, he mentioned that actually. Yeah.
I was like, wow. And so when he replied to a happy Derby Day, I was like, hey man, I could really use a Derby pie like right now.
So like I've definitely spread the love for Derby pies in my family, and my daughter, who has a boyfriend, by the way. I guess I could drop tea on my daughter because she'll never watch this, so I don't have to worry about embarrassing her. Anyway, so she's dating a boy, fine young man. They met at church. This is like literally what you want for like when you dream of ideas for your daughter to meet somebody off at college. Anyway, he does really nice things for her. She's like literally she tries to pay for things because he pays for everything, right? And she's like, I know he's not rich. I mean, but he feels I'm like, listen, he's got the right instincts. Anyway, so don't feel bad, but at the same time, yeah, definitely try to pay for some stuff. So
but listen, if there's one place we can mount a surveillance on a young man to make sure he's what he seems to be, it's
in North Carolina, right? Anyway, so last Saturday was Derby Day, and I guess I don't know if he knew about it being Derby or if it just came up or whatever. And she had mentioned that like her favorite pie was Derby pie, and so for Derby Day he made her a Derby pie, and she was like, "Oh my god!" So
that young man is a keeper. So.
That's a keeper, right? Oh boy. Let's see. Arturus, the Abyss Walker, for $20. First time ever sending a super chat, but I wanted to show my gratitude towards Future Conflict for what you guys do here. Been following ever since day one. Hey, man, I'm so glad you did that because it's awesome to see new names pop in. I think I've seen your name in the chat once or twice. It's not one of the ones that jumps out at me, but man, I'm glad you sent that. It means a lot that you're able to get something from what we talk about. I know we take our experience for granted, and I also take for granted the fact that Joe decides not to share the show link on Twitter all the time. But anyway, so
I'm busy with Ron here talking about your minor league baseball cap that you're still wearing. Ron, it's the same minor league baseball club. It's just
Yeah. The minor league team that is rocking the National League right now, the San Diego Padres. Maybe you've heard of them. They just made the New York Yankees look stupid in New York last week, but they won one and lost one. So they did make the Detroit Lions look pretty, or Detroit Tigers look pretty dumb too. Anyway,
yes, making the Yankees look dumb. Such a very hard achievement.
No, it's not. They're the fucking boogeymen for San Diego, man. They're the ones who in '98 beat the San Diego Padres in 4 straight games. I mean,
I know, but they always look dumb.
I don't know. I mean, back in the Don Mattingly era, they looked pretty fucking cool. Mustaches and all. Anyway, but the point I want to make is I'm just glad that folks like you can get something from what we're doing, because ultimately, we take for granted a lot of the experience that we have. Joe's got a lot of years in the security industry, and he's a Marine, and he's just really done a great job of crystallizing that in the Tactical Wisdom series. I, on the other hand, have a different skill set and different experience set, but equally long and drawn out. And I'll be honest with you, I was the kid in like middle school that was reading Newsweek magazine about places like South Africa and the Congo, and reading about Afghanistan back in the 90s, and following the rise of the Taliban and the civil war going on. So I was that nerdy kind of foreign conflict nerd. So I take for granted the fact that I have just sucked in so much information that now my analysis is actually somewhat valuable. So I appreciate you letting us know that you get something from it. All right, enough of that. Let's see. There was another China story here, and this is related back to the domestic piece, right? And we just had this trade deal with the U.K., and now I guess the talks they're setting up talks for a trade deal potentially between the U.S. and China. And Trump comes out and says 80% tariffs on China seems right ahead of weekend trade talks. And this is a update from the earlier part of the story. It said that 80% tariff on China seems right. Up to you, Scott B. And then the last comment leads credibility to an earlier New York Post report suggesting the administration is considering cutting tariffs on Chinese imports from 145% to a significantly lower baseline. Trump also said China should open up its markets to the U.S. Would be so good for them. Closed markets don't work anymore. And then basically, there was a lot of positive market response to this and the UK trade deals. So it's kind of good to see the markets kind of coming back around, because it really lost its mind when the Trump tariff thing. And let's be honest, while I agreed with the Trump tariffs, I think the rollout was pretty clunky. But that's kind of like I expected with Trump in his administrations. Good policies, a little fumble on the delivery, but ultimately it works out. Now, if only we could get the fucking Department of Justice on board. I mean, Joe, did you see the O'Keefe Media Group release where the video of Pat Bondi basically saying they've got tens of thousands of hours of video relating to Epstein, and a lot of it has children on it, and yet they have not charged anybody or released any name related to that. So
no, because I stopped paying attention to O'Keefe a long time ago. So
I don't know. It's kind of like he's only as useful to me as the information that he provides. And when sometimes
that's why I stopped listening to him a long time ago.
Well, I mean, like I said, he falls into the Mario Default category of, even if it's good information, it's good information. Doesn't matter where it comes from.
When was the last time an O'Keefe story was actually something?
Well, the problem is that even when it is something, nobody seems to care, or nobody does anything about it. It's kind of like there's no follow through on any of the stuff. It's just a word vomit that get in a video that gets dropped, and then it's crickets.
I think the biggest thing that O'Keefe has revealed is that most federal government employees will fall for a gay honeypot. That's the biggest revelation.
That is and imagine how many Chinese agents are taking notes on how to get them to talk about things.
Yep.
All right. All those Brits that that lived in Hong Kong are now being recruited to be gay honeypots here in America. All right. Let's see. According to sources familiar with the discussion, New York Post reports that the Trump administration is weighing a plan to slash tariffs from 145%. They're going to bring it down to, they said 50 at the time, but Trump's publicly saying 80. While the negotiations are ongoing, insiders said 50 to 54 range, down from the triple digit, isn't sustainable this week. It is in keeping with rates that are discussed last month when President Trump met with the bosses of the three biggest retailers in the U.S. So let's see. Let's look at this Bloomberg. No, I don't want to look at that. Anyway, the kind of pulling it back around to the trade deals with the U.K. I mean, I think this is good that the Trump administration is actively involved in getting these trade deals done. And I look forward to the fact that hopefully this isn't the end. It's just the beginning of a lot more trade deals. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert on this shit, but I just want, stuff to be available. And I want, American producers to have a much more level playing field to be able to sell the market.
We all just get along.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. I just don't want to have to, I don't want to have to pay too much for plastic tchotchkes that I buy at Walmart. I mean, come on. Is it too much to ask? I hope that the toy prices come down in time for when I finally get grandkids. All right.
His daughter gets a boyfriend, and he's already on to grandkids, y'all.
Well, like when you get daughters, you just assume that the grandkids are in. With sons, you never know. There's only a 50-50 chance that they're gonna survive to majority. Boys are pretty much self-inflicted destruction machines, but girls tend to actually survive to adulthood. All right.
Yeah,
hey, Joe.
My girl and my boy are alive today.
I know, but despite all of their attempts to try to kill themselves multiple times as children, I know my daughter survived childhood somehow, but thank God. Hey, Joe, let's talk a little bit about tackle-wisdom.com. What's going on over there?
I wrote an article last night based on the Spanish power outages called Lights Out. So with some advice on how to maybe be a little bit more ready for such situations. So it is apparently Ron approved and endorsed. So that's a good sign. So check that out. It's got some real practical tips in there and some ideas. And so I would check that out. I would also head on over to the training page where I will be updating it by the end of the weekend with courses for the rest of the year. I know that times are tough. There's a lot of folks who've emailed both Matt and I and said they can't make it this time around due to the economy and KS having the same problem. But I assure you guys, it only gets worse from here. And maybe investing in us is better for you than investing in a new phone that may not be working in 6 months, but the skills you get will. So if you're still on the fence, we do have spring training week coming up. Starts next Friday, the 15th or the 16th, with Matt's RTO course, where you can learn everything about the Baofeng radio and how to use them to stay in touch. Then starting on Monday, the 19th, 20th, and 21st, we're going to do SIGINT, which is gathering information using a spectrum analyzer, a Baofeng radio, and whatever other tools we might bring along. And then following that, we have night operations on the 21st and 22nd, where you can get out and we'll have some night vision and thermals that you can play with, and we can actually get you out there engaging targets with IR lasers and your nods and thermals. We're going to shoot a whole course of fire. And then K, the 22nd to the 24th, will be here using our big, giant, empty building to teach CQB. Learn how to negotiate a stairwell, how to do room clearing with 1- and 2-man elements, all kinds of fun stuff in there. Kay is uniquely qualified to do that, given his military background. And then I'll be running community security ops the 23rd to the 25th, where we'll use our road network and our base here to conduct security ops like checkpoint operations and entry control points and roadblocks, and maybe even some patrols, and we'll do some basic vehicle operations. So great week of training. If you can make it out, come and do it. If you just happen to be in the Montana area that week, stop by and visit at least and hang out with us. I have been reliably informed that the Duke of Montana himself will make an appearance, along with his principal financial advisor, Old Hong Kong.
His Grand Vizier.
They will be coming out to spend some time with us. Rumor has it, Don the Pleb will probably be running around here. Maybe even the rarely seen Nephilim descendant known as the Watcher on the Web may be around too. So it'll be a great time. Oh, and I'd be remiss to point this out yet again. On the 22nd, at no cost to anyone, our friend Juan Gringo in the chat will be out talking about how they use the community security ops to defend their large ranch along the Texas-Mexico border. So it'll
very
be
cool.
Pretty cool chat.
That's awesome, man. I'm looking forward to that. You've got a lot of dates for a lot of great events coming up. So looking forward to hearing how they all go. I know it's gonna be awesome. You were talking about some of the planning of patrol events and things like that in the beginning. So before the show started. So I mean, just some really cool ideas there. So Kaiser John just gifted 5 subscriptions over in the Rumble chat, and thank you very much. That's awesome. So I did a YouTuber thing. I just found out this new functionality in the YouTube chat. I think it's actually pretty cool. So if you look at the top of the YouTube chat, there's this goal, right? And basically, I set the goal as like they're $5 super chats, and if I make 5 teal super chats, I'll break out the bourbon. Is what I,
Oh, nice.
So I haven't drank on stream for a while. So
you know what? I have an email here that I want to share. I'm not going to put it on a screen or anything, but I got an email here from Brandon Zeter, the CEO of Shield Arms.
Yeah,
and for everyone who comes on site physically at our training classes this year, you will get a special discount code for Shield Arms that you can use in the store or online. I'm not going to reveal the discount, but it's going to be good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's a really good kind of.
And you both met Brandon. He's a great dude.
Yeah.
Very, very involved in preparedness. He's actually going to let me put a repeater on the roof of his building. And great dude, great guy.
Just don't fall off. All right.
Right on.
So let me get to my obligatory brush beater ad. It's that time of the show. It's always fun, seeing what I could come up with. So we're thrilled to, of course, bring another ad from the Brush Beater store, keeping you ready for the world on edge. Now, Joe, I tried to relate this to what we kind of talked about on Wednesday's show. So here we go. So sure, we've got some wins here at home with solid political shifts in 2025, but don't get complacent. The threats are still real, from China's saber rattling to Iran's proxy wars and Europe's migrant chaos. The world outside our border is a raging dumpster fire. At brushbeater.store, you'll find the tools to stay prepared. The DM32 radio, we talked about this on Wednesday. I thought it was worth talking about again. With AES 256 encryption, offers unbreakable comms, ensuring your team stays secure when the grid fails or chaos spills over. Need to master radio ops? Grab the Gorilla's Guide to the Baofeng Radio by NC Scout, your blueprint for off-grid comms in any crisis, plus their 2025 tactical training. Think RTO course, small unit tactics. This will equip you for real-world threats with classes in North Carolina, Montana, Missouri, and more. Visit brushmeter.store/collections/training courses to unlock your spot. Use our exclusive code CSC10 at checkout for 5% off the DM32, the book, the training, or any gear like night vision or ballistic helmets. Orders over $100, ship free. Head to brushmeter.store and stay vigilant. Big thanks to Matt, the owner, for his support. Matt, your commitment to CFC and our mission to stay ready is rock solid. Thank you. Visit brushmeter.store, use code CFD, and prep for the global storm. Now, back to the show. All right, Joe. I
want to mention two things on that real quick.
Yeah,
that apply to that ad. First, I told the guys in my Bible study last night that I'm really concerned about my safety over the next 2 weeks because my wife has never been in the same place that me and Matt are together. And this could go differently because Matt and I, we like to have a lot of fun when we're together, and we'll see how that goes in front of her. So pray for me. Yes. But the other thing is the sad hams came at the DM32 radio because they're sad hams and they always will. And they mentioned the AE256 encryption on this thing. They claim it's not actually AE256. It is. It just has a hex code translation problem. It only works with Baofeng or related radios. It doesn't work with like the Anytone or with my Motorola's or any of the other. I'm sure they'll fix that in an update. But it's still AE256 encrypted. If I have two of these, I still have encrypted comms. They're missing the point. The point of having encrypted comms isn't that every single person in the world can hear your encrypted comms, right? Just you and your people. So I know they like to pick them apart, but it is actually a solid radio. It's not the best radio in the world, but it's good for our purposes. And I'll be honest, we don't really use encryption anyway. We encrypt our message, not the traffic. And we use these mostly for sending text messages, which in a tactical environment is pretty darn cool because then there's no voice comms and they're much faster and harder to catch. So,
yeah, I think it's pretty important. But the key kind of takeaway that I tried to kind of bring with that ad is the fact that, we talked about this on Friday. On Wednesday, like just because we're in a good situation here with the world domestically, that doesn't mean A, there aren't domestic enemies, and B, there isn't a world that could literally burst into. And if you don't think a nuclear war between Pakistan and India, or between China and Taiwan, or something along these lines, can affect us directly here in America, you're fooling yourself. You got to be ready, and you don't know it, and you don't know what that means. So okay, I get it. So most of the people here in this chat are actually, you're not the people we're talking to. It's the people who catch our show onesies and twosies that are just kind of curious about, maybe they hear about the India thing and they want to check out what we're saying about India, right? If you're hearing this and you haven't heard it before, you need to be ready for anything. And it could be a tornado. It could be a local blackout. It could be a snowstorm. It could be a really bad rainstorm. It could be a cyber attack. It could be the end of the world, right? There is a scope of things that you need to be prepared for. And guys like Joe writing his books, Tactical Wisdom, and guys like Matt with the Brush Beater Store, Shield Arms is another one, the fully endorsed Shield Arms. I need to reach out to Brandon and see if we can't get them to sponsor us directly. He kind of said he would last summer, but I'm a terrible business person. That's the reason why I haven't done it. But
hey, let me address this thing in the chat. Listen, guys, these radios don't have a secret Chinese backdoor. You're not that important, and neither am I. And two, you don't know how UHF and VHF radio works, right? It's inherently short range. China cannot send a signal from China to every UHF, VHF radio in the world. It doesn't work that way. It's okay. There's no back door in them. Besides, there's billions of these sold. They're going to pick out just your radio to listen to. Stop it. And there's also no explosives in them. Please stop it.
Seek help. All right. Anyway.
Because seriously, we spent the whole day yesterday again addressing the are you sure there's no explosives in it issue? Because that's just dumb, by the way.
Well, look, at least I will say this. At least they have moved on from the are you sure the battery it's not the explosive to at least realizing that no, an exploding battery would not do that.
Right.
I'm a blind you.
Jerry's just campaigning to get booted out of here. Those two dudes yesterday, for the last 48 hours, I've just been going nuts on the radio thing. Man,
Yeah.
Thanks for tagging me in on that. I'm like, yeah, I wanted to share the wealth, brother. Sharing the wealth.
Yeah, I appreciate you're just being overcautious. I mean, it's just here's the thing, right? Like, let's assume there is a web-enabled backdoor firmware chip on all Battlefield radios, right? Let's be honest. Guys like us aren't the people they're trying to listen to. It's going to be the one really high-end guy that for whatever reason gets a Battlefield radio, and it's more likely their own people that they want to listen to.
Yeah,
so
let's make sure we put this across. What Joe says is very accurate. Like the logistics of this are what makes you know that it's not, because your radio is only going to broadcast for a couple hundred miles. It's not like they're putting a cell phone chip inside of it and then paying for a cell phone plan for each of them that could communicate it back. It's not feasible.
Yeah. All right. Let's jump into our main topic here. Segment 1, the Chutney Chowdown. We're talking about the India-Pakistan war. Now, Joe, we had gotten some reports, and like the big report was that ultimately we had heard some things, but we didn't know anything. Like there was and we knew that 48-hour rule even with wars applies. So we didn't get too hard in the paint, but evidently there's been a lot of details coming out. And one of the big one is this headline here: India-Pakistan 125 jets clash in one of the world's largest dogfights in recent history. Now, this is not a giant World War II style furball over the Kashmir line of control. This is most likely jets separated by tens of miles from each other, right? Maybe some did get close into it's what's called BVR, right? Beyond visual range engagements, right? And so some probably did get in within visual range, but not that many, and it mostly happened at night, so that makes it really hard to get into a Top Gun style dogfight. So let me read the story. This is a Newsweek story, so bear with me. Some 125 Indian Pakistani fighter jets battled for over an hour in one of the biggest dogfights in recent history, according to Pakistan security source quoted by CNN. The numbers of aircraft were confirmed. It would make, if the numbers of aircraft were confirmed, it would make one of the largest air battles since World War II. Why it matters. The scale of the dogfight on Wednesday underscores the intensity of the conflict between the two nuclear-armed rivals, both of which possess some of the world's largest conventional military forces. The highlights and implications of any further escalation should diplomatic efforts fail to ease tensions that erupted after an attack on tourists in Indian administered Kashmir. What to know? So the dogfight between the Pakistan and India jets, which the Pakistan officials say downed 5 Indian planes, was one of the largest and longest in recent aviation history. The Pakistanis' claim could not be corroborated and could not be immediately verified by Newsweek. A total of 125 jets engaged in an hour-long dogfight at distances. Some long-range missiles were exchanged at distances surpassing 100 miles. The Indian pilots made multiple passes at targets, while Pakistan issued warnings in areas it believed were at risk to minimize civilian harm. Neither side crossed the border. The source said, citing a 2019 clash when an Indian pilot was shot down. Air-to-air combat has shaped warfare since the 20th century. So essentially, they go on to talk about like these giant dogfights in World War II, and yes, we all know about that, but it's not relevant to what's going on here. But what we have found on X is a lot of evidence of missile-to-missile combat. So this Warzone article kind of gets into like what these missiles are, right? So air-to-air missiles that equip India and Pakistan's fighters. And so I thought this was pretty interesting. Let's see. So you've basically got the first use of the PL-15, which is a Chinese-made, with wreckage of at least 2 examples of this weapon being uncovered. Pakistani security sources have posted claims that 5 Indian jets were downed. Of these supposed kills, Pakistani sources have claimed that the destruction of no fewer than 3 Rafale multi-role fighters. If so, that'd be huge. Those Rafales are like France's top-of-the-line fighter jet. French authorities, meanwhile, looking into possible further Rafale losses. The imagery allegedly shows the wreckage of 1 Rafale, a single-seater, serial number BS001. The first Rafale EH to be delivered to India has been posted on social media. So this is the tail, number here, and it appears to be the exact same one. And there's a picture of. You want to click on that so that people can see what a Rafale fighter looks like. It looks pretty. Some pretty dope looking fighters, if I'm honest. It's obviously like an F-16 kind of analogous kind of fighter. It's not a stealth fighter at all. But
when you're fighting Pakistan, you don't really need a stealth fighter.
Yeah, you got that right. Joe, I mean, what's your takeaway when you heard this report of how big this dogfight was?
It actually doesn't surprise me, given the training levels and skill abilities of the pilots in that region of the world. I'm not degrading them. I'm just saying it's a fact of life that they're not exactly tier 1 air forces, right? So when you're not confident in your skills, you use the longest range weapon you have because you don't really want to mix it up. And rockets have really depersonalized dogfighting, right? It's really depersonalized air-to-air combat because you're not getting close and going to guns. You're actually firing from, like you said, 10 to 50 miles away, launching fire and forget missiles and hoping one doesn't come back your way. It's more about your evasive skill than anything else. I'm actually surprised, though, that more weren't shot down or that there weren't more just accidental crashes. Once guys for the first time get involved in a fight where they have to start thinking in 3 dimensions, right? Pilots sometimes lose that spatial awareness when you're also dealing with air-to-air threats, and some of them just accidentally slam right into the ground, or in that region, an unmarked mountain peak or something like that. So,
a lot of mountains in the areas where this was going on. So that's definitely a possibility. So they switched from these high-end fighters engaging with each other to engaging with drones. So reports of India using wide usage of the Israeli Harap drone and reports of Pakistan, shooting them down. Further down, like a little further down in that story, Watcher, there is a Pakistani ADA gun stationed at an airport, engaging one of those drones. It's just above where you were just at. You went too far down. Yeah, it should be. Yeah, right there. No sound. It appears to be it's a radar guided gun of some sort, because the way it was moving, it was clearly not being moved by a human.
It also sounds like some kind of artillery.
Well, yeah, it's a pretty large. I would say they're probably either 23 millimeter, or what's the 37 millimeter?
37.
Yeah, 37 millimeter is probably what they are, and it's got the double. So their proximity fuse rounds, because you shoot them on the ground and you hear them blow up in the air. So kind of like what you have with Sea-Whiz, or the what do we call it? It's not Sea-Whiz on the ground. It's I forgot what it's called.
Yeah. What? Yeah.
Yeah. The R2D2.
Right?
Yeah, but no, Phalanx is the radar missile system on ships.
Right.
Somebody in the chat's going to say it. It is. I'm just waiting for it. CRAM, that's what it is. I got it before the chat did. Thank you. All right. So talking about what these missiles are that they're shooting back and forth.
Talk about CRAM. How about OSRAM?
Yeah, ASRAM. So India's missiles. So the first one up is the MBDA AM-132 ASRAM, advanced short-range air-to-air missile. It's very capable in a kind of a dogfighting kind of usage, which has come into great prominence recently during its use in the Ukraine war, where it was successfully adapted for surface launch. Weighs a little under 200 pounds. It's similarly analogous to the AIM-9X Sidewinder, which is the American missile. So this is a European missile. It's moving down. We've got the Astra, currently only known to be carried by the Su-30 MKI. So India has a long-term relationship with Russia, and they've got like the high-end Russian gear, like the T-90 tanks. They're actually I think the first or second largest user of T-90 tanks in the world. I think they've got over 2,000 of them. And I believe they build them on contract inside India. And then they also fly the Su-30 MKI, which is, of course, the Russian fighter jet. And so this it's 61 range missile, mile range missile that flies around Mach 4.5, so pretty fast missile. It can do mid-course corrections via data link. The Derby missile so this is used exclusively for the Tejas or Tejas. I don't know how the Indians. I want to say Tejas. Like it's the Mexican pronunciation of Texas. But anyway, the Derby ER. It's a Israeli-made missile by Rafael, and it is a range around 25 miles. So it's kind of like a medium range. They could say it's got a full sphere launch envelope, meaning that it can be used to engage targets in its aft hemisphere as well as forward sectors. So some pretty high end stuff that that India has. Meteor is another European MBDA missile, kind of similar to the AMRAAM, the Mica. So they've got a lot of. Just kind of going down the list here. They've got quite a few different ones. They've also got Russian missiles like the R-27, which is known in NATO as the AA-10 Alamo. So Pakistan is the weird thing here is that Pakistan, the China-aligned country versus Russia-aligned country, India. The China-aligned country has a shit ton of American stuff because it's all stuff that we gave in the late 90s and the 2000s to kind of bribe them away from supporting the Taliban and for letting us do various things inside of they've got the AM9 they've got older versions of that. They've got the AIM-20 AMRAAM, which is our kind of long range missile.
Gene was the best joke in the chat so far, though.
Gene, how many batteries does the Can I just say that it's funnier when a girl makes a joke like that?
It is.
But the crazy thing is Pakistan's using like American and Chinese shit, right? Which is kind of ironic. Like they've got the PL-12, and then the first confirmed use of the PL-15, which is basically their version of the AMRAAM missile, the AM-120. It's reportedly got a range of 124 miles with a two-way data link, which means that like after they shoot it, the radar on the plane can continue to guide the missile. It doesn't have to have active seeking. And then there's pictures in the same story of pieces of the PL-15 missile. So that's probably one of the long-range shots that was used.
That two-way data link thing is also problematic because that means the pilot has to remain on active, as you mentioned. When you remain on active, harm missiles or anti-radiation missiles can come right back at you.
Au contraire, Joe, the firing platform doesn't have to be the one with the data link that tells the missile where to go. So, for instance, like the U.S., right? They'll use like an AWACS to guide the missile. Yeah.
Yeah, but then that also makes your AWACS a target. So.
Right, but I think the trade-off there is the AWACS is usually like what 300 miles away. So they've got the tyranny of distance.
Billy Blogs, well done. Well done.
Yeah, well, evidently, now that the Supreme Court has basically said that trainees are a no-go in the military, that they are officially, they are being cashiered from service.
Let me point out, as a former military police investigator, that it actually used to be a crime. So.
Sodomy, right?
Yep.
Let's see. I don't want to skip the next story, Watcher. Let's go straight to the. Let's see. I want to talk about these drones. So the interesting thing is Israeli drones being used against Pakistani targets. The religious irony in this. Pakistan shot down Israeli-made drones launched by India into its airspace on Thursday, following a series of Indian strikes across the country. Pakistan's military said it shot down 25 of the Harap drones on Thursday, including in Karachi and Lahore. An Indian government source confirmed with at least one Israeli drone had been downed by Pakistan. Both sides view the military claims made by the other as propaganda. The Indian source told the Middle East Eye that the drones were made in Israel and supplied to the Indian military by the Adani Group, a multinational company founded by Indian billionaire Gautam Adani, who has been close to Modi for decades. Over the last decade, India has imported military hardware worth $2.9 billion from Israel, including radar, surveillance, and combat drones and missiles. Israeli aerospace industry's Harap drone, launched by India into Pakistan, is a unmanned suicide or kamikaze aircraft, also known as a loitering munition.
Which bears striking resemblance to a Klingon warship.
Yeah, it's funny, right? It looks like a bird of prey. It does. The drone has been used in the Syrian war and also by Azerbaijan in the Nagorno-Karabakh war with Armenia. Pakistani military spokesperson said that aside from the drone shot down above Lahore and Karachi, Pakistan's largest city, one drone was downed over a garrison city of Rawalpindi, home to the army's headquarters. One drone hit a military target near Lahore, and 4 Pakistani army personnel were injured in this attack. Indian drones continue to be sent into Pakistani airspace and will continue to pay dearly for this naked aggression. Harumph, I say.
It's not even clothed aggression. It's naked.
That's right. Let's see. The latest round of hostility between nuclear-armed neighbors comes after India said it would hit terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan in the early hours of Wednesday, 2 weeks after it accused Pakistan of involvement in an attack in India-controlled Kashmir, which 26 people were killed. So it's just what we're seeing is the modernization of these low-tech solutions are spreading throughout the world, right? We saw them early on in the Ukraine conflict. for anybody who wasn't paying attention to the Ukraine conflict, the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia, Joe, what was it, like 2 years before Ukraine war even popped off again in 2021 or 22?
I would say that the Nagorno-Karabakh war was it was the drone battle lab. That's what it really was.
It was the coming out party for drones. So if you weren't tracking drones after that war, you should have been. Pretty interesting. That'll be one that they study for a long time into the future. When the Armenian Army and Air Force they seemed like they were completely caught off guard by those drones, and they didn't really have a good response to them. So we've got the next post is we got some local citizens taking it upon themselves to help defend their country. Just go to the next link on the show notes, and we've got the
short guy standing with a shotgun who allegedly shot down a drone again.
We've got the well, it doesn't look like they have shotguns. It looks like they have rifles. But they're definitely yeah, you can kind of just see it just right there, that dot. Yeah, right there.
So
they didn't get it.
What's that? I've learned, there's a reason why he's not hitting it. What I have learned in decades of conflict in the Middle East and then doing this show for a while is that he's failing to shout Allahu Akbar as he fires.
That's right.
It definitely improves the accuracy.
That's right. Well, it definitely explains why he's missing, or when they say that, it's like, oh well, that guy he's praying and spraying. So, all right. And then I wanted to kind of talk about the Harap drones being, kind of brought into India and that story because it talks about the budget. Because the final thing I wanted to talk about here is India's defense budget outgrows Pakistan. So India is really kind of, in the last, what I'd say 15 years, they've really started kind of upping their spend rate on some of their stuff. And I think they realized that a lot of their Cold War era gear was just not cutting it. And then, let's be honest, India is terrible at making their own shit, or at least coming up with. Now, they've got the Tejas fighter jet, and they've made their own. Well, that fucking assault rifle they made is fucking useless. It's absolutely... I've heard it been called the worst assault rifle in the world. And thus the reason why they got rid of it and bought some AR platform. But you still see a lot of Indian soldiers with FNFALs and other kind of.
They have their own called the INSAS, which is like a cross between the FAL and the AK-47.
And it's been widely described as the worst assault rifle in the world.
I don't know. They've made a lot of them.
I know. Because they refused to actually, they wanted, I think it was a vanity project of the administration back in the 90s. And because they wanted, to develop a homegrown Indian system, but I don't know that it worked.
Well, I mean, it works so well for the Indonesians with the Pindad or whatever it's called. So.
Well, there's like what the Mexicans have a bully of a assault rifle. What is it? Their attempt at copying the G36.
Yeah.
I hear that ain't so wunderbar either. Look at Bionic B, FAL fan here. Nice to see you there in the chat, Bionic.
Yeah.
One of my favorite people from the early days of the show. All right. So the last border crisis in 2019 also emerged after a terror attack in Kashmir, which killed 40 people. At Statistas, India is the larger of the two nations and has the larger military budget, according to Stockholm Institute for Peace Research. You can see here that the orange bar is the Indian military, and so this is per capita military spending. 59.6 per person versus 40.8 per person in Pakistan. And you can see kind of after 9/11 is when really about 2005 is where it started to kind of go sharply upwards. Standoff attacks after the Mumbai attacks, that makes sense. Border skirmishes 2016, 2017, the border skirmishes at 2019. So I just thought this was an interesting kind of thing to see how India has really kind of upped their spend on military hardware. And the other thing though that's really interesting is the per capita military expenditure, right? I mean, you kind of remember it's like what $10 billion military budget versus an $86 billion budget. But when you've got like 1.3 billion people, that really dilutes the per capita number. So it's kind of an interesting. There is some parity, oddly enough, between the two.
Yes.
Yes, there is, Scott.
But both countries, though, also have a lot of defense spending. India's is more, but because of ongoing insurgencies and ongoing, I guess I wouldn't really say insurgencies. I would say loss of control of various parts of their own country, right? India is probably better at it than Pakistan, but large swaths of Pakistan are not controlled by the Pakistani government. They're controlled by tribal groups, Islamic militias, and whatever. India does have an insurgency problem, but not as bad as Pakistan.
Well, Joe, I mean, I wanted to finish our India segment off with this, just to remind you that there are crazy people all over the place. Let me remove that. Let me add this. So this is a clash report of an interview with a retired Indian Major General. Let's see.
And you forget.
Yeah, just give this a listen, Joe.
And you forget that India is a nuclear power. India is a space power. We can blast the hell out of Turkey if required. But Turkey has been misbehaving for quite some time. They forget.
Grandpa, shut up. We're trying to fight Pakistan. We don't need to pick a war with Turkey, too.
I want to see him at the end do the classic Indian thing of twisting the ends of his mustache.
Right. Anyway, I thought that was funny when I saw that. I didn't even know that they were beefing with Turkey, too. So,
Well, Hinduism has a problem with Islamism, and
that's
will
true.
Never change.
That's where you just post the old meme, let them fight.
Yeah, let them fight.
All right, let's move on. So the other thing we're talking today is the Babushka Beatdown, and hopefully, based on some hopeful news that's come out in the last 24 hours, maybe we might see an end to the fighting, but I doubt it.
Ironically, I was telling everybody that I wasn't going to buy it until Zelensky said it, and then Zelensky said it.
Right? Yeah, 100%. Right, because so evidently. Putin's 3-day ceasefire comes into effect, but Ukraine claims Russia already broke it. I'll be honest with you. I kind of love the fact that the Russian army has a ceremonial tank unit of World War II era tanks. It kind of makes me wish that we had a similar like tank company or whatever of Sherman tanks attached to the old guard. That'd be cool.
That would be cool. This always happens. Ukraine says Russia violated something, but they don't tell the rest of the story, which is Ukraine probably sent a drone over and the Russians shot it down, or the Russians retaliated against wherever the drone was launched from. But anyway, yeah.
All right. So Kiev accused Moscow of breaching its own ceasefire on Thursday, saying Russia forces struck hundreds of times along the front lines and launched guided bombs that killed and wounded civilians. And so, okay, so this is classic, Joe. This is what happens. The leader says yes, and it says we'll start at X time, but for whatever reason, the word doesn't get out to all the soldiers down to the company level. And so you still got guys shooting mortars off. And then on top of that, they say, not fire at those fuckers. No fucking way. I'm dropping mortars on them anyway, right? Or I'm going to shoot a fucking drone over there and blow some of those guys up while they're fucking having a barbecue during the ceasefire. That kind of shit is always going to happen, especially in a war where they hate each other as much as they've grown to hate each other in this Russia-Ukraine civil war, which is essentially a Slavic like extra-national civil war. The 3-day ceasefire scheduled around the anniversary of Russia's World War II Victory Day on Friday was unilaterally declared by Russia President Vladimir Putin last month. It was meant to come into effect at midnight local time on Wednesday. A statement from the Kremlin last month said Putin ordered all military actions in Ukraine to be suspended from midnight on the 8th to midnight May 11th, based on humanitarian considerations. Russian state news agency TASS reported the ceasefire started as scheduled, yet the fighting appeared to have continued, according to the Ukraine's Air Force. Russia launched guided bombs over Sumy in northeastern Ukraine and Mykolaiv in southern Ukraine. The military and local authorities said on a post on Telegram, a 55-year-old woman was killed and her son was wounded in the Sumy region early Thursday morning, according to the prosecutor's office in the Sumy region. About half an hour later, a 70-year-old woman was wounded by another bomb in the Vorozhov area. The local prosecutors said. The head of the Kherson Regional Military Administration said a 35-year-old woman was killed Thursday as a result of a Russian drone strike on one of the villages in the region. He also reported several drones in the area. Of course, CNN is not independently verifying these claims. So they could A, be lies, and B, in the darkest of all secrets, it could be a fucking, false flag attacks carried out by Ukrainians in order to discredit
we cannot put past the Ukrainians at all.
Yes, that's correct. I'm not saying it was that. I'm just saying that's absolutely something that's on the table. In some areas, there were no clashes in the morning, but there were active hostilities in another of other areas, so we cannot talk about a ceasefire, he said, adding Russian troops had launched assault operations near Lyman, Volochansk, Kramatorsk, Chazar, Tgoretsk, Pokrovsk, and since it's supposed to begin at midnight. Russia also accused Ukraine of violating the ceasefire, even though Kiev rejected the short-term truce when it was first announced. Let's see. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky called Putin's announcement a theatrical performance and reiterated the country's support for an earlier U.S. proposed 30-day ceasefire, which Russia has rejected. The 3-day period Putin picked for the ceasefire coincides with Russia's World War II Victory Day commemorations, including a traditional military parade set for Friday, May 9th. The high-profile event is expected. Okay, so anyway, we've been talking about that. That's the VE parade. Ukrainian. So this is the other thing leading up to this, Joe, that I thought was interesting because it's a tactic that we hadn't seen thus far by Ukrainians. As Russia prepared to mark the anniversary at the end of the World War II, Ukrainian drones attacked Moscow for the second consecutive night, overnight into Wednesday. The attacks forced Russian authorities to temporarily halt air traffic at 13 airports Wednesday, 4 in Moscow and 9 further afield. More drones were flying Wednesday, with the Moscow mayor Sergei Sobyanin saying that one drone was headed towards Moscow was shot down Wednesday afternoon. The shutdown of the airports potentially embarrassing Moscow for the delegations of the countries that remain friendly to Russia were flying in. Brazilian President Lula da Silva, Vietnamese President Lam, Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko are amongst the 29 leaders on the guest list, according to the Russian presidential aide. Zelensky said his country would not be playing games to create a pleasant atmosphere and allow Putin to exit from isolation on May 9th. Joe, the airport thing is actually a pretty genius strategy if you think about it. Maximum disruption with minimal amount of, cheap drones or whatever. And all this is going to do is force the Russians to shift some of their air defense assets so they can reasonably cover these areas. And Moscow is kind of a far stretch for the Ukrainians on most days.
Yeah, a lot of those Ukrainian drones, though, aren't actually taking off from Ukraine.
Right.
I think that some actually take off from Latvia, and some take off from fields inside of Russia by some forward intelligence assets, right? So I also think it's a silly escalation. If they had actually been successful in striking the Victory Day parade in Russia, that would have driven the Russians to be forced to destroy Ukraine. Because it would have actually proven Putin's point all along that they're the resurgence of the Nazis. It's better to let something like that go untouched and attack the next day or whatever. It's silly to attack something that celebrates the defeat of Nazism when somebody else has accused you of being a Nazi, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the biggest worry about both, I cast this stone at both sides, right? Is that they can't call each other Nazis fast enough, right? Now there are authoritarian issues with both of these governments, right? So don't get me wrong; it's not saying that there's no corruption, no authoritarianism in Russia. While we say that about Ukraine, the problem is they're both in so many ways they're like they're like basically a mirror placed in front of them, and they're looking at themselves, and that's one of the reasons why I think they hate each other so much at this point, because they're both corrupt authoritarian regimes. That essentially want to milk their people for all they're worth. Putin has just proven that he's willing to do it at a lower level because he wants it to last long term. But Zelensky is basically taking this war, for everything he can get. All right, Joe. Any final thoughts on that before we move on?
There's not going to be a ceasefire because the two sides are too far away. It's great that everyone's making the noises, but when you read Zelensky's actual statement, it's only if the Americans come in, and it's only with conditions that the Russians will never agree with. So it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, so just the next story actually explains what you're just talking about there. Trump calls for ideally a 30-day ceasefire backed by sanctions. Ukrainian records 734 attacks despite Putin's claim of a 3-day halt to fighting. Let's see. Donald Trump, after a phone call with Zelensky, called for an ideally a 30-day unconditional ceasefire. If the ceasefire is not respected, the U.S. and its partner would impose further sanctions. Trump posted, Zelensky said after the call on Thursday that he told Trump that Ukraine was ready for talks on Russia with Russia in any format. But first, Russia must show that it is serious about ending the war and starting with a full and unconditional ceasefire. Joe, the problem is Zelensky's basically saying, listen, if they're not willing to talk about returning almost all of our land, then, what's the point in even sitting down? But then he says he's open to talks in any format. Well, no, you're not. You're only open to talks if they meet all these ridiculous preconditions. All right. So that's kind of the thing I wanted to talk about. So got a couple pictures and videos from the May Day parade. But before that, we've got maybe this is one of the things that pissed the Russians off. Ukrainian kamikaze drone struck a government building in Belgorod region today, injuring the deputy governor and a National Guard officer. Now, here's my question, Joe, is look at where this thing hits. Watcher, do you not have this one? It's the
Apparently
first, the three generic links that just say media post.
Oh, yeah.
That I'm highlighting.
I have it. It just wasn't in the right order. It just wasn't in that order.
So I don't know how this got the deputy governor, because look where it hits. I mean, was he walking on the sidewalk down here? Like as it hit? I mean, it hits what looks like a an architectural piece on the building. So I don't know. Unless there were more than one, I don't know. And this shows that they, of course, didn't respect.
Well, if you look, there's somebody just casually walking by on the ground. So I wouldn't say any debris made it all the way down. Yeah, right there.
Yeah. So maybe that guy is literally, maybe they just got fucking really lucky, and that's the deputy governor.
Or maybe it's photoshopped or AI generated.
Or maybe they were watching that guy and they timed the hit. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let me.
Somebody said a ceiling tile inside fell on him. So.
Yeah. See. Oh, okay. Well, that's pretty funny. The interesting thing here, Joe, on this next one is the evolution of Russian tanks since the beginning of the war. Like, if you remember, we had that first May Day parade, like right at the beginning of the war, and it was pretty epic, right? Like it was a pretty big parade, and they had all their their recent stuff. That's I think watching that's like the link after. Yeah, there you go. So, Joe, I wanted to kind of just go through and look at how their tanks have changed. I mean, so this is the T90M. It's got a new shaped turret, so they've got a new turret design. They don't have a cope cage on it, but as soon as it gets to the battle area, it's going to get a cope cage. And let's see, we've got the next ones are T-72 B3s. Which is kind of the workhorse. Now these kind of look. So this has got a lot more ERA on top, and I think that is an acknowledgement of the drone threat. But once again, it doesn't have like some of the kind of the less sexy looking battlefield enhancements, such as the cages and whatnot. And then the third tank is the T-80 BVM. The T-80 tank being like their most kind of like high-end tank from the great from the Cold War, and this is the modernized version of it. I'm
sad to see no 12.7s on any of these, but I imagine that's because they're inside Moscow and they have a history of bad things happening when you let tank commanders have machine guns in Moscow. So
yeah, that's true. The interesting thing is no Armada tanks. I think they've pretty much decided that tank was a dud. Ultimately, I think a lot of times that things that they buy that aren't effective, they go by the wayside very quickly once they actually have to use them. All right, let's see okay. So this one, this video is interesting because this has got a lot of their UAS systems. But notice that these aren't the kind of quadcopters. These are like the fixed wing ones for the most part. So the first two are basically like fixed wing drones for observation, not loitering munitions. But the next one is the Lancet, and then that one's the Shaheed. The black one is the Shaheed, and oddly enough, they actually have a Shaheed on display in Congress, I think, today, in congressional testimonies.
The Russian trucks look better than they used to.
Yeah, the 8-wheel truck. I mean, I think that's probably an improvement because with the muddy terrain, you need more wheels to spread the weight out.
Yep.
So anyway, I thought about doing a longer kind of, get more clips from the parade, but I felt like the tanks and something like this were probably the most interesting stuff. So, let's see. Also,
another interesting clip.
Yeah, another interesting sighting from the parade today. I thought it was interesting. Evidently, he's doing a Dracula cosplay of Vlad Tepes cosplay here with the perfectly manicured widow's peak.
Truly, Russia's most lethal weapon.
Absolutely. Zelensky called off the attack on the parade when he realized that Steven Seagal would be there. He's kind of the Russian Chuck Norris, if you know what I mean. Is how the mighty have fallen. We're a long ways away from the old Chief Ryburn. I'm just a cook. What Under Siege was a good fucking movie. I liked the shit out of that one back in the day. Perfect hair plugged with it. Yeah, exactly right. I bet he went to Turkey for that job. All right, and finally, Ukraine was Ukraine was suspicious of the parade footage, and they felt like not all of the parade footage was included, so they made sure that some other additional parade footage was included, and so you've got
Мимо трибун проходят знаменные группы с государственным флагом Российской Федерации. Знаменем Победы.
Pause and watcher. In fairness, there were a lot of the Russian washing machines being, the Russians basically looting out washing machines. Now, there's two kind of stories behind that, right? The first story is that, oh, well, they're Russians and they're just thieves, right? And they're just, it's war booty that they were taking home. The other is that they were that the Russian government told them to look for things with chips in them and all that kind of stuff, so they could then take all that stuff back and then salvage it for the chips and whatnot for industrial purposes. So I don't know which one you believe. They got their coke cage on the T-34. I'll be honest with you. This is shockingly decent for AI footage. That's funny. I don't know what it says. But yeah, the irony is they're not showing the kind of stuff.
I'd actually rock that tank right there.
Anyway, so anyway, some Ukrainians are having a funny at the Russians' expense. I mean, let's be honest. This whole thing is a big propaganda show. It's fine. That's the way it is. That's the way the world works. But it's kind of sad that what this war has come to. So many dead people that didn't need to die if the fucking leaders could have just done their job and led their countries correctly. And I point that finger at both sides, but ultimately I think Zelensky bears more of that than anybody else. All right, Joe, looking to the weekend, final thoughts, predictions, anything popping up in your crystal ball?
I will predict that there will be no ceasefire. Also, there was a late attempt yesterday to organize a protest in response to the mistrial out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Anything short of a full acquittal is actually a miscarriage of justice. So we'll see if anything materializes out of Antifa actions in Grand Rapids. But Antifa has made quite a resurgence in the last 48 hours. They've taken some serious actions, but law enforcement has given them sort of a crushing response. So let's see what happens over the weekend if that continues, or if Antifa tries to rise up and say, look at how bad they're treating us. So.
Joe, I gotta say I've been pleasantly surprised at the reception that Antifa's been getting by the cops, which is very different than the Summer of Love. Yes,
it is crazy. I will point out one thing that has happened in the last 24 hours that should be an issue but isn't. The three cops who were acquitted out of Memphis, Tennessee, who were involved in that horrible incident where they chased down this young man. Sure, he fled from them, But after they caught him, they were on video beating on him with batons and kicking him and all that stuff while he was having an obvious medical issue. And then he had a cardiac arrest and died. They were acquitted, which is absolutely a travesty of justice.
Unbelievable, man. I just don't understand how that shit happens.
Especially since two of their fellow officers pleaded guilty to it and testified against them. But it's pretty sad.
Yeah, no, that's right. Watcher, looking into the weekend, what do you think?
Oh, I think India-Pakistan's not quite over with yet, and I'd keep an eye on that. 100 and some odd fighters is definitely an escalation, and they've both got a lot more in the quiver. So I'd expect to start seeing armed groups on the ground in Kashmir exchanging fire. It's kind of it.
Yeah.
My eyes are mostly in Southeast Asia.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think that India and Pakistan is not over yet, but I think ultimately they're looking for an off ramp. They do not want full-fledged fighting. Pakistan's going to do. I think the military response ultimately to India will be as small as it can possibly be. Basically to placate their civilians. Because they have to do some sort of response after that shellacking they got by India the other night. But in the final accounting, if they're able to keep it relatively small so that India basically is able to say, touche, and then call it a day. Ultimately, if they end up killing a lot of people or let the terrorists kill a lot of people, that's going to send India over the edge, and it's just going to escalate if they aren't able to get away from it. All right, guys, that's all I got. It's 2 hours and 2 minutes. I think a successful Friday. I appreciate the fact that you guys did not take my challenge to heart over on YouTube, and you spared my liver. Thank you for that. I appreciate you all more than you know. I do have bourbon. I haven't drank in like a while. So it's probably good for me. All right. You guys all have a great weekend. If you haven't done it already, please subscribe to the channels, either on Rumble or YouTube. Like the videos, hit the bell for notification when you do subscribe. Let them know, and then let your friends know that the Council of Future Conflict is where you go for all this future conflict chicanery. For Joe and Watcher chat, you guys were awesome. Stay safe.